Hello again. Welcome to Mapping Hour. We're ready for hour 10. Remember that you're going to need a login to do any of the work that we do today. Last time, wow, the really exciting part of working with analysis, taking advantage of all of these functions that you can do. Again, you need to make sure that you have a publishing level account, an account with publishing privileges. That wonderful story of the Jon Snow situation, thinking, geographically thinking, that's the hard part of this. Thinking analytically is the essential part of using these analytical tools. And what you can do once you've finished working and preparing the data, that's what we get to look at today, is apps. Create, save, share, customize, and configuring. Note, this is not programming unless you want to, but working with configurable app templates and the web app builder or experience builder. So this is the day where we get to focus on putting together the finished product. Up to this point, we've been working on the construction zone. What is it that we're doing? Now we get to turn around and start preparing these things for outside viewers. Ready to go? I think Tom and Charlie are up here. Tom, what have you got for us?
I was thinking, you were working on such a cool map the other day. It seems like we ought to start with that map and see what we can do to turn it into that next level of GeoTool and app.
So you mean this map that I had from the last episode where we were doing the analysis, and there's my watershed, the watershed feeding the fishing hole. So you want to share this with people?
Yeah, and the thing is I think about a lot of folks who don't use GIS very often or maybe not at all, and some of this stuff like this interface elements and the buttons and the even some of the legend functions. I mean, some of that stuff's just unnecessary for the crowd I'm thinking about. I'd like to share this with. I just
All
want them
right.
to really be able to focus on the map. So
So I think we can do what you're talking about by creating a web app here.
sounds great.
All right. Now, when I hit the create web app, it opens up into here are a bazillion choices that we have. It's not really a bazillion, but it's like dozens because we've got, they're all alphabetized here, which is great. But what I really want to do is to start thinking about, okay, how do I think about these? So I see that there's a build a story map, collect, edit data. Actually, you know what I'm attracted to is this question mark here. Ooh,
Hmm.
documentation. This is the choose an ArcGIS configurable apps template. So I'm looking through build a story map, collect and edit data. Hey, those were the panels that we have over here on the side. So there's the build a story map, and these look like the classic story map templates. And here we're in collect and edit data, compare maps, but you're really looking for
I
something that
just
is simple.
simple, and I want to focus my audience's attention on the map itself. I don't think I need a whole lot of bells and whistles.
Okay. Interpret imagery, that's not it. Maps, social media, that's not it. Provide local information might be getting close. Route or get directions, no. Showcase a map. Showcase a map.
That could be it.
Basic viewer, map styler, media map, minimalist, minimalist beta, story map basic, minimalist. Well, let's see what
This sounds
what
promising.
the help file says. If we go down to the showcase a map, the minimalist, and then there's the minimalist beta. So the beta, I'm not so big on beta software right now. That's the new JavaScript template. I think that's what it's working off of. But what does this give me here? Okay, so here's what the minimalist lets your map speak for itself with a very simple user interface. I think that's what we're looking for here. We've got some configurable options. That's good because I'm not a programmer. Get started. Click the create a web app, create a web app, create app from template, download to access the source code. Do I want to access the source code? I don't think so. So let's go back here. I want to select minimalist as my template.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a preview option. Download if I want to download the source code and create it and run it from my own server. I don't want to do that.
I don't have my own server. Let's take
You
a
know,
look at the
okay.
preview, though. That looks cool.
The preview, that's going to show us sort of what it looks like. And it's giving me a nice clean interface with that's really focused on the map. But here it's opened up in a spare tab, so I'm just going to kill that. I think that's what we want to do. Create a web app. So now, aha, yep, I'm getting ready to save something. So this is minimalist app. And I'm going to use that in my summary. And all right, I'll save it there and say share this app in the same way as the map so everybody gets access to all of this stuff. Done. All right. Now, do we have our, no, we don't have our app all set because we're now in the configure zone. All right. So this is the select the web map. We've already got the right map that we want. A theme. Oh, we can have a light and a dark theme maybe. Yep. And select colors. If I've got a special logo that I want to use. Custom layout. Oh, if I'm into custom CSS. Charlie something something. That's for programmers. That's not me. That's for programmers. Options. Oh, here we go. I want to have a home extent button. That's so that what we have, we've got a way for it to begin. We can say, where do we want the zoom to show up? Well, top left sounds good. Let's put the base map gallery up here because somebody might want to swap in some other items. Scale is always good on a map. So I'm going to go for, the scale bar. Disable scrolling is if you're embedding the map in a website or a blog. I don't want that. That's good that that's not auto chosen. Options to add a legend. I think a legend would be helpful. Details and pop-up info onto the side panel. Yes, let's display the side panel when the app loads. And what do we want in there? Let's have the legend. Display the legend with a layer list. Would you like to be able to turn layers on and off?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Okay, so let's do that. Display map details in the side panel, display pop-up content in the side panel. I don't think we want any of that. Choose the default panel. Legend. Oh, I see. What's going to show up as a default? Let's have the legend show up. All right. I think what we need to do is to save this now.
Mm-hmm.
Saving. And now this is what we're getting here in our experience. And now we can go down here and launch it in a new. Well, first of all, do you like the way this looks? Is this going to work okay?
I do. Yep. This
All
is
right.
great.
All right. Let's launch it. So it's giving us a whole new panel. So this is what somebody's going to see. And it's going to start with these layers turned on. So I've got still my option to pan and zoom. I can choose a different base map if I want. I kind of like the oceans map because here on land, it makes it sort of look less cluttered, but let's stay with Kylie's light gray because she's got,
It's clean.
it's clean.
Hey,
She's got me there.
Are your fish icons clickable?
The fish icons.
Oh,
I got the adjusted
the hut.
point. Oh, that's the adjusted point. So let me go to the next one. Charlie's fishing hole. That's
Okay.
that's what that icon is. That's got my Latin long there. And then I'm getting the downstream trace. You know what we could do to clean this up more would be to go back into the map and clean up that pop-up the way Kylie was showing about cleaning up the pop-up, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to have Ned mentioned here, national elevation data and
So
X and Y and all that.
in this case, if we clean up the pop-up in the original map, does that carry through to our application?
That will carry through, you bet.
Awesome.
But we get still to see how big the watershed is. And oh, I see, there's that light gray base map even that we can turn that off and maybe choose a different one. So there's a lot of capacity that we have in here. World shaded relief, all kinds of stuff in here that we can play with. So I think we're done, Tom.
Do
Oh,
we share it now or do we share it later? Somebody else can
oh,
share it.
we need to share that. All right. So back here, we've launched it. I'm going to go ahead and close, and that's going to take me back to, this is my Minimalist app. So let me get to my content. There's the Minimalist app. Because we said to share it the way the map was, we're good.
Awesome.
So it's now shared automatically with that. So
Great.
I think we've got this now so that if I said I want to launch this, view the application, you know, the one thing I wish I had was a short URL, because I've got this long, gnarly one. Somebody somewhere, maybe someday will learn how to do that. But for now, I think we've got our application. So just a quick review then, if I get this right. We were in our content, opened up the map. Yep, I want to open up the map in the map viewer. Share, create a web app,
Mm-hmm.
made our choice. Oh, because the minimalist template. Yeah. picked that minimalist template out of the batch of configurable templates. There's all of these options here that people could choose. Click that minimalist template, which is all the way down here. Could I search minimal? Yeah, sure enough. I could search that way. Hey, I see that there's another option up here. I think that's what Kylie's going to work on. I don't want to go there. She has more capacity than I do. So I think we're good.
That's great. I love it.
All right. Success. Let's go ahead and stop sharing then. And let's turn it over to Joseph.
Okay. I love it too. I love everything that you folks were doing. I'm going to be in the middle between what you did with the Minimalist app and what Kylie does later on in the mapping hour. So I've chosen a 2D and 3D web app to build with you all. One of the things that I thought would be important to remind people of is, as you saw with Tom and Charlie, with a map in ArcGIS Online, you have the full interface. It's not very complicated. You've got some tools on the top. You've got a table of contents, a legend, some analysis tools that we looked at a couple of episodes ago. But you have the full interface. With an app, you have the customized interface that the builder of the creator of the app specifies for you. Remember way back in episode 1 where I talked about produce section of a grocery store versus a Lunchable that's customized by the producers of Lunchables. And while that was an imperfect analogy, I realize, the interesting thing about this second point is that you and your students can actually create these apps and customize them according to your needs. So, for example, this top one we're going to build here in a moment, it's a 2D web map inside ArcGIS Online. The lower right-hand corner image is a customized app. It's a 2D and a 3D compare app. Well, which is best? Tom and Charlie showed you the not the zillions, but the several dozen choices. The most appropriate one for what you're seeking to do. That is the best one. Oftentimes we get students, and even a couple of faculty occasionally, that say, which is best for, and we say, again, what's the most appropriate? What meets your instructional goals? So our hands-on demo for this section is going to be, we're going to explore this 2D and 3D compare app, and we're going to examine how it was created. I'm actually going to walk you through components of this. And our theme is geomorphology. I mean, what's not to love? Landforms, how landscapes came to be, one of my favorite topics. As an intro, remember way back on episode 1, we showed Charlie's 2D and 3D compare app for one of his favorite places, Hawaii. And you may remember that one. If not, go back and review episode 1. But the point is, he used a compare app to build this. What I'm going to do is pick, again, this is one of the 5 themes of geography, is place. We all have an affinity for place. And I also love teaching about landforms. And so I'm going to build this same kind of thing for one of my favorite places. How do we do that? I'm going to shut off my video so you don't see big fingers typing. And we're going to focus on the area that I was showing you in the photo. So how do we do that? I'm logged into my ArcGIS Online organizational subscription. Okay. I'm going to go to map. And I'm going to, this will touch on what we talked about in terms of data quality a while ago. You'll see in a moment. Mount Garfield, Colorado. Notice where it puts it. It's the first thing that it finds. In this case, it's not even in Colorado, it's Garfield County, Montana. So be critical of the geocoding process. It works pretty well, but it's not a perfect science. So how do I find my place? Pick another place that's close to your study area. Ah, Palisade, because here's Mount Garfield really close to there. So there's Palisade. Very nice. Okay, super. All I want to do with this map is I want to add a map note. Okay, I'm going to create a map note right there, and I'm going to configure that map note. I'm going to put it right there on this spot where you saw the photograph earlier. And in here, I'm going to say, oh, okay, this is the photograph that I have is actually right here online, and it is Mount Garfield. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and test that. How do I do that? I have to get out of edit mode, and I'm going to click on there, and when I click on that image, there's my, or by that pop-up, there's my image. Great. Go ahead and save this now, and I have some title tags and things like that that I can just plug in here. Again, if you're going to do this and use this in the future, you probably would want to spend a little more time on the metadata tags. So now I've got that map inside my content, correct? Let's go ahead and check it. If I go back to my content here, I should have that map inside my ArcGIS Online Organizational account, and there it is right there. Okay, it's not shared with anyone, so let's go ahead and just quickly share it. Okay. Now, notice I have a JJK on there. This is Tom's admonition to us a couple of episodes ago that put something like your initials or the date or the lesson or something that distinguishes your map, because let's say you're using this in a classroom, every student might have a Mount Garfield 2D map. So I think that's good advice from Tom. Let's go ahead and go to scene now. And I would love to be able to create a 3D scene. A new scene, okay, that's great. And again, I'm going to find my location, okay? So let's go ahead and say, oh, on the search box, it's over here in the right-hand corner, and using what I used before, I'm going to go to Palisade, Colorado. And, ooh, that's looking good. But of course, it's a 3D scene, so let's do, ooh, look at these landscapes. Oh, very nice. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm also going to say, you know what? I want to save the scene, and I'm going to call it, let me scoot this up here. I'm going to call it my Mount Garfield, Colorado 3D scene. And that looks good, and that looks good as well. My initials as well. Okay, super. So now I've got the 3D scene there. Let's go ahead and save. I'm not quite happy with that as it looks at the moment. And so I'm going to say, what about the base map? Can I change the base map? This base map, as well as other tools, transcend applications. So if you see something that looks like this four-cornered thing in many applications, it's very nice that, look at this, topographic. Right? Why not? Oh, I'm a big fan of USGS topo maps. One note that you can share with the students is, why is this listed twice? This is the edge of the old topo sheet. Sheet? These are made by hand? Yes. So you could have a little discussion about how these maps were actually made in the not too distant past. All right, that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and save this again. Now, one last thing, this is a little bit of a review, but remember slides. Capture slide, that's my topo. Okay, done. What if I wanted to add a slide? Ooh, let's go ahead and change this a bit. And let's go ahead and say imagery. Ooh, imagery, okay. And then capture that slide and call that imagery. Great, done. Save scene. I've got a 2D map and a 3D scene. Now I'm ready to go for my 2D and 3D compare app. Go ahead and save. Notice, this is the fascinating thing if I'm teaching geomorphology. Remember this? This is looking pretty similar, isn't it? Wow, that's a photograph I took on top of that mountain. Kylie would be proud, but I didn't jog up. I walked up, Kylie. Sorry about that. Anyway, now we've got the 2D map and the 3D scene. How do we know that? We can go back to content. It's a good idea to check and make sure that everything is saved and shared how you want it. So I can go ahead and say, you know what? I really want to share this with everyone so that you can look at it too. Now I've got my 2D map and my 3D scene. If I go back into my 2D map, there are several ways to go into the app zone. This is one way. Inside my 2D map, I can go ahead and go over here to the right and say create web app. Oh, okay. Configurable apps. We've got something that Kylie will touch on later, the web app builder. Ooh, story maps. We'll touch on that later on. Ooh, dashboards. Ooh, we'll touch on that later in the mapping hour. But configurable apps. This will look very similar because this is exactly what Tom and Charlie were looking at with you a moment ago. Now, as Charlie mentioned, we can go to compare and just search. Now, I knew that it was in there, but if you didn't know that, notice on the left side, you also have this compare maps and layers, and there's exactly the same one as I searched for and found. I'm going to go ahead and select that. Visualizes geographic phenomena in 2D or 3D using two side-by-side or stacked views. Okay, create a web mapping application. I've got a title for that thing. I'm going to have my initials on there again, which is right here. Okay. I don't like those tags. I'm going to add my own and hit return there and some summary statements. All right, that's looking pretty good. Very nice. Now, done. Now we come to the fun part, folks, and that is the configuring part. This is where I'm going to dig a little deeper than Tom and Charlie, but not too deep. Okay. First of all, I'm not going to spend that much time on aesthetic kinds of things. You probably realize that you can change colors and button appearance and things like that. I'm going to spend more time on the actual mapping data. Okay. Now, what about this? The app header. Remember, Charlie had a string of text that appeared at the top. I'm just going to call this the same thing. Sorry, is my title. The thing that Charlie had was this information panel, about panel, open on launch. And what's the text that should be in there? Okay, the text that I want is, Charlie's text was how to navigate on the app and the map. I'm going to focus on the questions that I want to ask the students or my own kids. So a bit about which directions does the water flow? Oh, remember that trace downstream tool? We could use that. Why do the north-facing slopes host more vegetation? Notice this, the north-facing slopes have pinyons and junipers. The south-facing is pretty much bare rock and soil. Okay. Which landform do people live in this area? It's basically, we're flatlanders here in Colorado. As much as we like to talk about John Denver, we are mostly living in valleys. Actually, Denver was the governor of Kansas, as Tom probably knows. Name 3 processes that acted to form this landscape. Okay, that's looking good there so far. Now, again, the fun part, select. My 2D map is already in panel 1, but my 3D scene is the one that I want for map number 2 in here. Notice that I have my 3D scene right here. There it is. I'm going to select that. And that now will appear on the right-hand side of my compare app. Let's test it out a bit. Ooh. Okay, nice. And there's the mountain, there's the valley where all the people live, and here are the bare rocks and pinyons and junipers of Mount Garfield. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. Notice that, remember when I had the little scene frames inside the 3D scene? The one that is the default for your 3D comparison app is the one that's first. So you can go back to your 3D scene if you don't like the way this appears and go ahead and adjust that. And then when you save your 3D scene, it'll automatically appear when you refresh this 2D and 3D web comparison app. Well, it's looking good so far. Let's go ahead and do a couple of other things. One of the things I would love to have folks, is I would love to have the ability to change the base map. I'd like to have the users get the ability to do that. So I'm going to go to where that base map configuration tool is. I think it's under options. Oh yeah, here we go. We've got the scale bar. I want a legend. And base map toggle to map 1. I answered my own question. Okay, I'd like it in the bottom right, and I'd like to be able to change it from the topo base to the USA topo maps, which is the USGS topo maps. I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's go ahead and test it. In panel 1, which is the left side, on this side-by-side configuration, I've got this now. And notice in the lower right, which is where I specified, I can now toggle it to the USGS topos. As I zoom in, I get a different scale of topos, and that's why you have a different contour interval. And then again, note the edge of the topographic map right here on the south side of the mountain. This is looking pretty good so far. And I'm going to go ahead and do one additional thing, and that is I'd love to have the ability to measure. So I'm going to click on that. And about a home tool, Charlie had that on his, and I often like to do that as well. So I'm going to hit home just in case I zoom into the side of the Colorado River, and I'm really not where I want the students to focus their attention on. And one last thing, on the upper left here, I mentioned this earlier when we built this, we made a side-by-side web app. The stacked one, as the name implies, allows you in a sort of a well, let's just take a look at it. Let's go ahead and save that as a stacked, and you'll see what I mean. It allows you through tabs or something like this. Sometimes they're stacked on top of each other. It depends on the app. Sometimes you have a tab and you click back and forth between the tabs. But you know what? I really like that side-by-side better for teaching purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to call that good, folks. There are other things that we can do on here, but I'm hoping that it's a simple but powerful example. Again, remember what you have in your ArcGIS online map, in this case on the left side. If I had in here the land forms, the zones, valley, cliff, mountain, ecoregions, vegetation cover, the point at which the water flows down, the trace downstream. I could have that in here. I could have the Esri hydro layer in here showing which way the water flowed. Those are the kinds of things that I could actually have in here for an extension. So if you just use add data and you add it to your 2D map, it'll appear here in the comparison, which is, I think, incredible. Okay, now the funnest part of all is we're going to launch. Launch. Okay, I've saved. That button is gray over here, so I'm going to go ahead and launch this. And then one of the things that we wanted to test here was the following. Remember this? The questions I posed at the beginning? So this is the first thing I want the students to see. These questions. I'm going to keep those in mind as I teach this particular lesson on geomorphology. If I say OK, we can start navigating the landscape. Oh my goodness, what's not to love? We could spend the whole rest of the time navigating this landscape, but we need to move on, so I'm going to turn it back over to my colleagues. But I hope that was a powerful example of the kinds of things you can do with this. In here, one last slide to show folks that we will share the resources. Here's Charlie's essay on the power of simplicity, which really hammers the points home that we just went through, and his 3D scene, his 2D map, and the compare app. All right. Thanks.
That was really cool, Joseph. So I'm going to go ahead and steal the screen now. And let's go ahead and share my screen. Now, we've already seen a bunch of ways you can take your map and turn it into an app. And my background was in our field apps team. And one of the things that's great about that is these focused apps, right? Like Charlie has been talking about, like Joseph was saying, we don't need necessarily every button that the map viewer is presenting. So what we want to do is create the experience we want. Now, you may notice I have a GeoInquiry here on the screen. This is the Gatsby one, which you've seen in an earlier episode. And I have the map open as well. And one of the things we did when we looked at this map was we were comparing the historic map and the current data. Now, when we did that, we used the content and we played with toggling that topo map, the historical map on and off so we could see differences. Well, I saw this really cool map once, and I'm going to go ahead and show it now. and it was looking at a fire damage before and after. Now, again, this is one of those scenarios when the event is not what's exciting, right? That was devastating and people lost homes. But what was really interesting to me is there was this bar in this app. And look, as I move it, you can see what the homes looked like before. And as you go this way, we're seeing what they look like. Wow, right there, I can see half as it was and half as it wasn't. Now that's really powerful for me because visually I find that much easier to compare than if I was to have both of these layers and turn them on and off. So like we've said, visual analysis is one great type of analysis. And this is a trick that can make us actually do a little bit, in my opinion, better visual analysis when we're comparing these two things right along these edges. So what I'm going to do right now is go ahead back to our map. Now I want that bar thing. But unfortunately, that's not part of Map Viewer. I can't even get a swipe in here. That tool isn't part of this experience. But I know it exists, right? Because I saw that map using it. So I was listening when Charlie presented. I was listening when Joseph presented. I'm going to try an app. So I'm going to come in and let's see. I will share. And I'm going to go ahead and create a web app. All right, there's a lot of choices. Okay, compare, right? I have a little bit of a hint here. There's a lot. This has swipe in it. Maybe that's going to be good. Maybe this one over here. Now, I've gone ahead and played with these, and I used that doc that Charlie showed earlier. I'm going to jump to that really quick. We can see all the types. And what I actually did is I came in here, and you can see up here, I searched for the word swipe. I know exactly what I'm looking for. Let me see all the places they talk about it. Okay, I saw that one. So it looks like these are the two, public information and story maps. Those have it. All right, so we can come back here. I see those two. Well, in reality, it takes some playing. So I played with both of those. And here's what I came up with. So this is using the public info configurable template. I have my swipe. That's kind of cool. This is pretty much what I'm looking for. But there was a problem. One of the things in the Gatsby geo inquiry that we were using a lot was measure. We wanted to see this real world and how it compares to ours. Now, if I get this swipe tool to make my students have a better experience in this geo inquiry, I don't want to do that at the cost of other things I'm teaching in the geo inquiry. Now, here I would have had to make that choice. Neither the story map or the public info templates actually have measuring. That wasn't an option for me. All right, so that's not going to work. Let's go back in, and there's this next tab of Web App Builder. Now, you may have noticed in Charlie's slides at the beginning, he talked about Web App Builder and Experience Builder, and that we were going to use one of those. Now, what that is kind of like the older, fully functional brother, the Web App Builder, and the newer brother, the Experience Builder, that's kind of more that latest and greatest, a little bit more cutting edge, but it hasn't caught up yet in terms of all the capabilities that you can easily plug in. So the reason I mention that is there's some cool things you can do in Experience Builder with 2D and 3D, with different layouts, and with how it works on mobile devices, but they haven't built the same tools yet, and they don't have a swipe yet. So that was out for me from the beginning. So I'm going to jump into Web App Builder instead. And in here, I'm not picking a template because there's just one. I get to make it. So we're going to go ahead and give it a name. And we'll use some tags. You'll notice it's inheriting a lot from the map that I'm using. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. I'm going to come down here and get started. Now this is going to spin up my app and get it ready for me. And what you'll notice is the difference between the configurable apps, that other template you saw over here, and the Web App Builder one is, with the configurable apps, you picked your template up front. Now, Web App Builder does have some templates that help you jumpstart your work, but you don't get those until you've actually chosen and gotten started. So as you can see, it's now loading, and now we're seeing some choices over here. So you do have different layouts and different tools you can work with, just like you did before. But you choose them at a different time. In this case, I've played around with it enough to know that the dashboard theme is going to be the one I use today. Now I can see kind of the layout I have, and I'm going to go ahead and modify that layout, because really what I want is I want to present some information. I want to have, let's see, what else do I want in here? Measure, right? We talked about that. Bookmarks, I used those when I went through the geo inquiry. Might be able to turn on those layers on and off again, because even though I'm adding swipe, there's value in looking at it both ways. I don't need this many things around here. So I'm going to go ahead, modify the layout, and I'm going to remove some of this, because in my app, those would kind of just be noise. I don't need that many things. And I know kind of the layout I want, so I'm going to go ahead and set this up. Now I could actually come in here and configure it later as I play to figure out more what I want. All right, in Web App Builder, one of the most powerful concepts is the widget. So what a widget is, it's kind of what it sounds like. It's a little buildy, blocky thing, right? That's about as technical as you can get because the details of the widget are up to whoever made it. Now, little tip, you can actually make your own. But as Charlie said, then you're going to be stepping into programmer land. We're not going to go there right now. But there is a whole gallery of widgets available. So over on the left here, we can see this tab of widgets. And you'll notice something here. I've got one. Oh, look at that red square appearing over in my designer. So whatever I put in here, it's going to show up at the top on the left of my actual app. This one at the bottom. Well, what's down here? Oh, you notice on the map, look right up here at the top by those navigations. So we've got other choices over there. All right, well, I know I want some descriptive info. I'm not seeing anything that looks like it's going to let me enter text. You click on that widget block. It's kind of hidden. I found it a little bit hard to find the first time, but it is there. You just need to know to go to where you want to place your widget and click on it, and you're going to see all of the options available to you. In this case, about, I just want to put some text there is going to be a great choice. I'm going to go ahead and pick it. I don't need to tell about Web App Builder. For my students, I just want to present some information to them. And in fact, I copied this earlier so I could just paste it in for you now. What you'll notice I'm doing in here is giving them some information about using the app. One of the other limitations I found in the template I had used was that similar to the app that Joseph just created, the information about how to use it or what questions I wanted to ask was in that pop-up, but then it was gone. I want mine to be a little bit more persistent. So in this case, you'll see it's right here. Now, that's kind of small, but I can come back in, and by clicking down here in this corner, I can configure that widget. And I'm going to go ahead and jump the font size up a little bit so that we can see it better. We'll go to medium today. All right, that's going to be a little bit easier to see, especially if I'm presenting in front of the class. Now, I talked about some other widgets I was going to need, so I'm going to go and click on this one. And in this case, let's pick a couple. Let's see, I wanted a layer list just in case they want to turn it off. Legend is always a good thing to have. And I know we used bookmarks in the past. Now, it may look like I picked those kind of quickly. That's because obviously I've tried this already, right? I know the things I'm looking for. Now, if I didn't, I'd need to go in and explore. And the documentation, kind of the stuff Charlie was showing earlier for the app, is a great place to go. You can learn about each of these widgets in there. But I'm not going to show that right now. We'll have resources for you at the end. Go ahead and click OK, and look at that. It actually put all three in there. And look, they've done it as tabs. Well, I don't really like that order. So I don't want bookmarks first. Let's see, maybe I want my legend over here. So this is just a way I can drag, drop, reorder so that I get the order of things that I want to use. All right, we'll start with that. One thing I did like in the original Gatsby map was that I could see the legend really easily. So I'll make that the default there. Now you may have noticed in the bookmark tab when it was showing, it has like these little thumbnails. And it's fine, but it's not really what I'm going for because they all look the same right here. So instead, I want to just make it a list. And I don't want people to be able to add them. Okay, and I don't need them to be able to make their own custom ones, display it, any of that. Let's just keep it nice and simple. There we go. So you can see I'm getting a little bit more details in the configuration here, right? There's different looks and feels within each of these widgets. There's a lot more choices to make, and there's a lot more I'm going to have to explore and find on my own. All right, I think that's good enough for this side, but there are a couple things I'm still missing. And one is the reason I couldn't use those other apps, templates, was being able to measure. So if you noticed, when I had the list open, there was an option. Now these buttons down here go on right onto the map. And measure is actually the kind of thing I think of as a tool on my map. So I'm going to go ahead and tap the measurement one, and we'll put it right there. And let's also go ahead and put the swipe. Now that is another one that I can find right in here. And I'll pick that swipe tool and we'll say okay. Now, there's a bunch of options in here, right? I can pick what's swiping. I can choose direction. I can choose which way it goes. I'm going to go with horizontal today, I think. I can choose to flip it. I can see if it's one layer or multiple. Well, I know that I really want to look at this for that historical topo map. So that's what I'm going to pick. All right, let's pick those. And let's see, I didn't really pay attention, but look, even in measure, I can configure what's available in there. I could even change the icon for it if there was something I really wanted to use. So again, you're seeing that in Web App Builder, these details and all these things that you can customize are really more up to me. All right, I think that's enough for me right now. I'm gonna go ahead and save what I've done here. And then we can go ahead and we can launch this application, just like you saw in the other ones. So it opens, and here we can see, here's our description. We can see our layer list and toggle them on and off. We have bookmarks, and we can use one just like we do in the geo inquiry. And I have my swipe tool, and I can click it, and I can see just how I wanted to compare, okay, what did it look like right then and now? What was up here? What was over there? All right, okay, there's a lot of development right there that I can see right in this area. Yeah, that's very different. All right, so just another example of the things you can look at by building this app. Now, there is one more thing I want to talk about with this, which is you may have noticed these tools are a little different. Let's look at measure, for example. It's similar, right, to when we used it in the map viewer. And when I go ahead, I need to make sure I pick which type of measure I'm going to do. And now, just like we did in the other episode, I kind of trace along and I see the measurement, right? So these tools are still going to be familiar, but they might be a little different. Base maps, do I have that base maps button right next to content and details? No, I don't. That, as you saw in Joseph's, was now a little thumbnail right on the map. So there are going to be differences, but don't worry about it. They're still fairly intuitive. And as teachers, one thing you'll find, your students will have no problem, right? They're the best at seeing a new interface and clicking on things and playing with it and finding how it works without worrying about breaking it. And like we said before, you can't break it. Just refresh the page, you'll restore everything how it was. That goes with these apps as well. So be aware that it will look a little different. It will work a little bit differently, but your kids are going to get used to it. They're going to be fine. Just make sure that you're not getting in their way. All right, the other thing, just to mention one last piece, is I mentioned that Web App Builder does have documentation, and you can see it here. Similar website to the one for ArcGIS Online's help that Charlie was showing for the configurable apps. And I'm on the page about extending Web App Builder. Just one of the things from my background, I sometimes enjoy coding. And if I had something really special I wanted to do, I could use these resources, make my own widget, my own little component to plug it in there. And because we have a social platform with sharing, I could even share those with other people. All right, that's all I've got time to talk about today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Charlie to take us through what's next here.
Wow, Kylie, that was great. That was really exciting. And what you described in there about being able to move somebody from building or configuring to assembling and constructing the widgets, that's a real key of the web app builder. Getting in and saying, okay, I'm gonna customize how the little widgetry works. That's really fun to be able to do. I've used that the web app builder to build a template with a set of pre-constructed filters that somebody can engage, and it's really, that's a powerful capacity in that web app builder. Great job.
Thanks.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here because we're now at the zone where we can say, all right, let's look and see, what did we get? We got the apps-a-palooza. We got apps galore. And it's this whole notion of the map as a construction zone versus the app as a finished product that is really powerful. When you think about cooking and maybe a big family meal, you can cook it in these pots and you could serve it in these pots, but it's better if you present it in serving platters and serving trays and serving dishes and things like that. It makes it a more pleasant experience for the eaters, and certainly a more pleasant experience for your app viewers, not to be distracted by the, oh, you can construct other things in here if you want. The app is designed to give somebody an experience. You're doing something for somebody. You want them to be able to interact with it the way that you're designing it for them. So this is Joseph yesterday in the last experience was talking about using the map as an analytical tool. You want to give somebody that same power with the analytical tool, but you need to constrain it. So in the way that we had talked about with the maps as create, save, share, now we add another element in here, which is this customize or configure. As I said, I'm not a programmer, and getting people to be thinking about configuring is really important. The configurable app templates begin the process. The web app builder really multiplies it by an order of magnitude. And the experience builder is the new piece that is coming up, the new kid on the block that will be ready to rock and roll soon. I'm looking forward to that. So again, construction zone versus finished product, and configure versus program. And pause there, because programming is an option for those who really like to code, who really like to host their own design, their own application. Lots of these apps are, or these templates are, they have configurable elements. You can get in and monkey around with the design for all parts of these apps. And then when you're sharing it, and this is where people that we've worked with in the past have run into challenges, is they've shared the map and they've shared the app, but something's not working. Well, you got to make sure to share all of the contents that are in the app, and the contents that are in the map, and then make sure that you're sharing the app. All the contents, the map, the app, they all need to be shared similarly. But gee, what happens if you've got some of that subscriber content from the Living Atlas that we saw back in episode 8? The Living Atlas has some fabulous content. What if you put some of that subscriber content into your map, and then you make an app out of it and you share that publicly? Well, there's a way when you engage the app, when you say, I'm going to put this in there, one of the little panels will be, yes, I'm going to take control of making sure that it's okay for people to be able to see that subscriber content. I will take the burden of their being able to see that. So you really need to kind of dive into the documentation that we showed you how to look at here. So all of these pieces, there are lots of little bits and pieces that you're now starting to assemble here to think about GIS, and that's where the documentation becomes really important. When you're thinking about, how do I work with these widgets, these tools with controls on them, how do I control that? Take a look inside the documentation. It's really good documentation. It's well written and it's very complete. There's a lot there. So, wow, we've come up with a whole big set of content here. Let's take a look at, where do we go? So from this class, if you just say, how do I get started working with the documentation? I'm not really comfortable with going there. Frequently, if you look at, you'll see the help in a number of places where you're going. Either a question mark or just the word help will take you there. But if you just want to be thinking about how do I review this, start with the Getting Started doc, and that's what you'll see in this first link. If you say, I want to go to that configurable app help documentation, remember you can hit the little question mark there, or you can just click the link here that will take you to the choose a configurable app. And then Tom and I worked on the Minimalist app. Joseph was working on the Compare app template. And so you can get to either of those, choose their own element. And Kylie was working in the web app builder, so you can get to the web app builder documentation zone. So go in and explore and start getting used to it. People ask me a lot of times, how do I get to know this? And I said, okay, just explore. And somebody will say, I need to figure out how to do this thing. And I copy and paste the link to that part of the help file, the documentation, and send it back in an email. And it's not anything that they couldn't do. So keep working with the documentation. Take a look for the previous videos if you need to kind of review some of the elements. And if you're going over into the Teach with GIS site, there are several items that are working with the web app templates. And so this link says it's prepackaged in there to say, show me those. And the same thing on the Learn side, if you can read now the URL, remember how we were talking about reading your URL? In the Learn gallery, I want to find web space app and its lessons and its ArcGIS Online, so that will present you a number of items to look at. Then in the training catalog, there's a wonderful collection that's going to sort of summarize what we've done in episodes 1 through 10. And that's a set of classes for secondary students. And then there is a book, Getting to Know WebGIS, that you can take a look at through Esri Press. Well, let's do a quick review of where have we been. So if you think about episodes 1 through 5, that was the absolute bare bones fundamentals for ArcGIS Online. And all of the things that we have done since then rely on getting those essentials down cold. We're dealing with all of those things: create, save, share, the map viewer and the scene viewer Joseph was using today, online map, and the metadata to make it all make sense. These last 5, episodes 6 through 10, have gone through expanding that whole ArcGIS Online infrastructure orders of magnitude in terms of what you can do. More data, more powerful data, publishing the data for other people, working with other people's data that is well documented, curated, authoritative stuff, doing this analysis, and then creating these apps for other people to take advantage of. We've covered the world, but we're only halfway there. We've got all kinds of apps to work on, apps to work with for making all kinds of new capacities. So we've got 10 more hours of this stuff to go to cover all kinds of magic and analysis and thinking powerfully about solving problems, understanding the way things are, and being able to use that understanding to solve problems. How do we help other people experience that? Thanks for being with us for these first 10 hours, and especially today in this hour. And we'll see you next time.
Take care.
See ya.
Bye-bye.